Some golfing god is with the young man at this moment, and it'll be interesting again to see what he does now.
At the 1999 British Open, French golfer Jean Van de Velde was having the tournament of his life.
He's going to be at least 3 shots ahead.
Which is a massive lead on the final hole. So massive that his name had already been carved into the trophy. But then he hit a wild shot.
Uh-oh. And that bounced and seemed to go way to the right.
And then he hit another.
I don't believe this.
Well, look, what is going on here? His golfing brain stopped about 10 minutes ago, I think.
And then he hit his next shot out of the tall grass.
I don't believe it. This is so sad. And so unnecessary.
Now his ball was sitting in a shallow stream.
Well, we've seen a few miscues and mishaps in our golfing careers, but... Oh, Jean. What are you doing? What on earth are you doing?
Jean Van de Velde was choking. The next part is the worst. Van de Velde takes off his socks and shoes, stands ankle deep in the water, right next to a stone wall the height of his head, thinking maybe he can somehow hit the ball out of the water and over the wall onto the green.
I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness. No, Jean, please, would somebody kindly go and stop it?
Jean Van de Velde's collapse at the British Open is considered the greatest choke in the history of professional golf. And the question posed by commentator Peter Allis,
what is going on here?
That is the question of this documentary.
In my research, I've looked a lot at why in those situations where ironically we want to perform at our best, we can't put our best foot forward. And I talk about that as choking.
Sion Bylock wrote the book on this subject. Literally, it's entitled, simply, Choke.
It's not in the physical aspect of them being able to do their skill. It's more in the ability to execute it when it matters most.
A lot of coaches will tell their students, just like practice. And you're standing there thinking, this is not another practice. This is the Olympics.
The homegrown product, Elizabeth Manley of Canada, who's had so many tough times in her life, personally, emotionally, put on a tremendous amount of weight one time, has fallen in important competitions.
In that little heartbeat, when everything is still right before the music started, do you remember that moment?
Oh yeah, my heart was pounding out of my chest. I was in my pose and I felt like I couldn't breathe.
We all have choke moments all the time when you're introducing yourself to someone new that you want to impress and you can't remember their name and you're kind of fluttering on your words. Like, these are pretty well-learned skills, right? We all have them. When we get so good at performing these well-learned skills, we tend not to think about every step of performance.
What trips up our steps is pressure.
In these high-stress situations, we worry. We worry about the situations, its consequences, what others will think of us. And one of the ways that we try and control this is by trying to then control what we're doing.
And when we try to take control, we activate the wrong part of our brain.
We have this front part of our brain, the frontal cortex, which is great for doing so many things, for planning ahead, for juggling lots of information in our mind. And researchers have shown that oftentimes we have sort of too much activity, too much attention to detail, and often that can be rooted to the frontal cortex, which is that seat of our cognitive control.
The other thing that seems to not be helpful is to focus too much on the minutiae, the mechanics of the technique that we're implementing in the moment. Because as soon as we start either monitoring what our muscles are doing or trying to control what our muscles are doing, we start experiencing choking or things start falling apart pretty quickly.
Tsimikas for Liverpool and wins it for Liverpool. And just like in the League Cup in the final here in February, they've done it via a penalty shootout.
Every team in the league practices penalty kicks, but Liverpool had recently added a new tool to their arsenal.
My name is Niklas Hausler. I'm a neuroscientist and a co-founder and CEO of the German startup company Murrow.
Niklas and a colleague had been working with Liverpool's players on their penalty kicks. They went to Liverpool practices and attached electrodes to every player's head.
We measure the brain activity. So right now we use EEG.
The players practiced their penalties, and Niklas then showed the players their brain scans.
Using the EEG, we figure out basically what are the mental routines that help you and things that may actually distract you. And then we try to figure out, okay, what are the things that distract you? How can we eliminate them in our training? And then step by step, session by session, we improve this. It's about controlling your brain. It's about, the big thing is understanding your own mental processes, and only by understanding it and controlling it. Some players maybe will look at the ball. Some will look briefly at the target. Maybe it's you look at the grass next to the ball. Everybody has their own little anchors, that they can fixate upon. The thing is that you can train this as much as you want. If you don't hook up a machine that measures your brain waves, then it's hard to decipher, okay, but is this an anchor that actually helps or not? Yeah, so this is I think the big difference to us with the new approach.
That game in February 2022, when Liverpool won on penalty kicks 11-10, was the first major test of the work Niklas and Neuro 11 had done with the team.
I might have been the guy in the stadium that has the highest heart rate, and I had to calm myself down again, using the techniques that I know for myself, so breathing and meditating a little bit. For me, as a neuroscientist, it was actually even more than that. It was about, a revolution in professional sports, because it was about applying neuroscience in such a high elite level context. And I feel very honored and, very privileged to have witnessed this and to be part of this. But in the end, to be also completely honest, I sat down and I just cried out of relief, because it was, the pressure was just so extremely high,
Which brings us back to this.
It's an unenviable task for Christopher Waddle.
A soccer player facing that gaping net on a penalty kick.
Pearce can't look. Here goes Waddle.
At the World Cup, at any championship, one of the world's best soccer players will try to make a shot he's nailed 1,000 times in practice. And he'll either be like Roberto Baggio in 1994,
He's missed it, and Brazil win the World Cup.
or like Canada's Julia Grosso in the 2020 Olympic final.
To make history for Canada, she does! Canada win the gold medal for the first time! Julia Grosso converts the penalty kick.
Whether that soccer player succeeds or fails, and whether a particular dancer or skater, musician or golfer or gymnast nails their routine or chokes, they'll be showing us something crucial.
What I think is really interesting about trying to understand performance anxiety is that it gives us real insight into our ancient selves. So, of course, when faced with threats in our environment that are life-threatening, we are going to fight or fly. It's very useful to have responses where our blood is pumping to big muscle groups and gets us into that state ready to go. And so therefore, this whole area of performance and performance anxiety is one where it allows us to ask questions about how we as humans and how we've evolved to deal with threat and challenges in our world are able to interact in the 21st century world.
So after all that searching, what have you learned ultimately about choking?
I have learned how to finally beat my friend Neil at pool.
This goes to how to sabotage your friend.
I threw this question to Noah Kagiyama, who is now my unofficial performance coach.
One of the things you can do, you can start messing with your friend by asking him what he's doing technically. It's like, oh, that was a great shot. What did you do there? You know enough about billiards and technique to ask him leading questions about specific things. I'm sure you can think of all sorts of questions related to technique that you can ask him about so that he starts self-monitoring and potentially, in theory, is more likely to choke. Again, you might want to tell your friend about this afterwards and buy him a drink.
Well, we'll see you at the pool table then.
I guarantee victory!
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Noah.